Viewers, where do we start today? It's a very big story and a very big day. Almost 100 MPs suspended, both houses of parliament. I won't begin by saying it's an unprecedented development because it isn't. Yes, 92 MPs have been suspended in one flash for unruly behavior, and it does look like a big number. But in 1989, for instance, a grand total of 63 MPs were suspended by the then Speaker. At that time, the Rajiv Gandhi government had a brute majority. Neither am I going to say that the move is illegal. This is because both houses of parliament possess the power to discipline members so that the houses can function undisturbed. So in the Lok Sabha, Rule 374 is deployed to suspend MPs, and in the Rajya Sabha, Rule 256 does the job. For the record, suspensions can only be legal when the rule clearly covers the misdemeanor. In the case of MPs suspended today, the rule perfectly conforms with the nature of the allegedly obstructing the houses. But of course, this hasn't always been the case. You know this, viewers. The suspension in the recent past of a member of parliament, for instance, by the Privileges Committee was suspect. There is no rule by which an MP can be suspended pending inquiry. At least that's what I've learned from my research. The rule only applies to government employees. But coming back to the drama today, the MPs have clearly been punished for violating set conditions of parliamentary behavior. And let me just take you through the reasons. They were suspended from the Rajya Sabha via voice vote, and this number was 45. 45 opposition MPs were suspended by voice vote. Now viewers, why is a vote called? Because the Speaker himself doesn't have that power. He needs the House to come out and back his findings. So the issue is placed before the larger House. The House votes to uphold the Speaker's decision. In the Lok Sabha, 33 more opposition MPs were suspended for disrupting, quote, disrupting the House, unquote. 3 MPs, K. Jayakumar, Vijay Vasant and Abdul Khalik, climbed on the Speaker's podium to raise slogans. Now viewers, that's not going to be tolerated in any part of the world, let's be honest, especially not in functional democracies. Prahlad Joshi moved the motion for suspension. It was again adopted by voice vote in the Lok Sabha. The suspended opposition MPs say the BJP government wants to run the House without the opposition. They also say that the BJP government doesn't want to face questions. Rajya Sabha chairman, Mr. Dhankar, who's also the vice president, obviously viewers, says some members are deliberately ignoring the chair. Obviously, the opposition is not buying these words, and the suspended members are calling the suspension an attack on democracy, reflective of the government's arrogance. The BJP has, of course, come out in defense of the suspension, saying that, quote, rules are rules, unquote, and that discipline is the hallmark of any functional democracy. Let's listen in to how the opposition is categorizing this action today.
कई दिनों से हमारा मांग बड़ा सीधे मांग सदन में आकर हमारे गृह मंत्री एक बयान दे। जो बयान सदन की बाहर रोजाना देते हैं, टीवी की सामने बैठ के सारे देशवासियों की सुनाते हैं, उसमें से कुछ सदन के अंदर आकर वो कहे।
It's the most unfortunate. Never in the history for the past so many years, ever since the establishment of the Indian Parliament, never in the history these such things have happened, and the response of the government is very, very poor.
विफलताओं को बचाने के लिए एक बुलडोजर चला रहे हैं विपक्ष पर, जनप्रतिनिधियों पर और जनता के अधिकारों पर। वो मूल अधिकार जो सवाल उठाने का जो मूल अधिकार है, संविधान की जो मूल अधिकार है, उन अधिकारों पर आज रोंगने का काम भाजपा कर रही है।
You heard Mr. T.R. Balu of the DMK just a few moments back, and he says it was unprecedented views. Of course, I've told you it's not, because it simply isn't. There have been many instances where a large number of MPs have been turfed out altogether. But be that as it may, if it is arrogance, as the opposition claims, then it must also unequivocally categorize suspensions of BJP MPs and MLAs in state legislatures as a mustering of dissent. Here are a few hard facts that suggest that this tool is employed across party lines and across legislatures, centre and state. Let's run you through, viewers. Let me run you through. What was all of this then? If what the centre is doing today is reminiscent of a dictatorship, then what was all of these instances? 1989, 63 opposition MPs suspended following commotion over tabling of Thakkar Commission report on Indira assassination. That was an action, summary action taken at that time by the Rajiv Gandhi government, or rather the Speaker. Perhaps, viewers, at someone's behest, but since we can't impute motives, we'll just say that at that time, the Rajiv Gandhi government enjoyed brute majority. In 2010, 7 MPs were suspended from the Rajya Sabha for snatching the women's reservation bill from the minister. At that time, if you remember, viewers, the Congress-led UPA was in power. In 2012, 8 MPs were suspended for 8 days. In 2014, Speaker Meera Kumar suspended 16. Yes, viewers, 16 Andhra MPs. That was in February of 2014, for 5 days after pandemonium broke out in the House over Telangana issue. In 2022, 5 BJP MLAs were suspended from the Bengal Assembly, the state assembly, for protests against poll-related violence in the state. In 2022, the Supreme Court revoked 1-year suspension of 12 Maharashtra BJP MLAs, calling it an irrational act, impacting the democratic setup. Of course, former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh had also taken a dim view of misconduct in Parliament, branding it as a negation of democracy. And let me read out that quote for you. Back in the day, viewers, Dr. Manmohan Singh said, and I quote, "We take pride in our parliamentary democracy and the tradition of free debate, that it implies all right-thinking people should stand up and unitedly state that parliamentary institutions should be allowed to function. The opposition chose not to take advantage of the subtle institutional practices dealing with the reports of CAG and insisted on disrupting Parliament." This, of course, viewers, was in the context of the CNAG report being tabled in the House on certain scandals, alleged scandals, embroiling the UPA government then. At that time, Dr. Manmohan Singh said that these disruptions that were going on, which threatened to wash out a whole session of Parliament, were a negation of democracy. This is what Dr. Manmohan Singh said. You can't deny it. These are hard facts, viewers. Interestingly, erstwhile leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, around the same time, the late Arun Jaitley had defended his party's MPs during the UPA era when they disrupted a whole session of Parliament, leading to a costly washout. At that time, Jaitley had said that, and I quote, "Parliamentary disruptions is in favor of democracy and therefore it is not undemocratic," unquote. The mismatch between Jaitley's sentiments then and the suspensions now, when the BJP is in power, may be glaring, but the hard facts also suggest that the courts have ruled in favor of suspensions in the past. Here's an example of the Supreme Court not only upholding the suspension of 19 DMDK MLAs from the Tamil Nadu Assembly in 2015, but also upholding the decision to deny them their emoluments. Yes, viewers, in 2015, the Speaker of the Tamil Nadu Assembly suspends 19 DMDK MLAs from the Tamil Nadu Assembly. All MLAs were also denied their salaries and incidental benefits for that period of suspension, which was in that session and the next. 6 MLAs appealed in the Supreme Court against the denial of emoluments, citing violation of Article 19, which is the freedom of trade and occupation, Article 19A, freedom of speech, and Article 21, the right to life. The Supreme Court held that the freedom of speech is not absolute, and curtailment of speech due to suspension from the legislature falls within reasonable restrictions. So, viewers, it's not unprecedented And because the law is applied exactly and covers the misdemeanor exactly, it's not even illegal. Yes, you can question it on moral grounds, but then viewers, morality in politics is elastic. It stretches like a rubber band day in and day out. But we'll come to that. These are all important questions. I'm not going to shy away from them. The opposition might come out and say, this is absolutely morally reprehensible. But what's democratic about disruption? That's a fundamental question, and that's being posed tonight. Let's ask some piercing questions on the hard facts. I've given you some very, 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 very exacting facts from the past. And let me bring in first, in the interests of balance, the Congress MP from the Rajya Sabha. After that, I'll bring in Dr. Ranganathan for the civilian point of view. And then I'll bring in the BJP spokesperson and then political analyst and Congress sympathizer Kamru Chaudhary. So viewers, we all know this set play and the panelists know. So let's proceed. And I want to begin with the Congress Member of Parliament who has been suspended. Mr. Hanumantaiah, what's the issue today? Suspensions, you're calling them unprecedented. Well, that's debatable. Yes, the number is quite high, but 67 in the past. Under Rajiv Gandhi, you know, take a dozen here, give a dozen there. Well, you know, it doesn't suggest unprecedents. But certainly, if you have a point about legality, I'd like to hear it, sir.
This is totally unacceptable and unprecedented in the parliament today, particularly in Rajya Sabha. You just think over what is our demand. Our demand is very clear and very reasonable that the breach of Security Act inside the parliament has to be, according to me, it should be suo motu answered by the Home Minister, not only to the parliamentarians but to the nation. The breach of security inside the parliament cannot be accepted, and we have not learnt the lessons on these parliament incidents. So our demand was very clear and straight that the Home Minister has to come and explain inside the parliament that why this breach of security has taken place, what are the reasons, where it has gone wrong, why it has gone wrong, what is the answer to the parliament and to the country, to the people of this country. But most surprisingly, the Home Minister never attended the parliament and given an explanation. Instead, he went to a channel and answers some of the questions raised by the people of this country and raised by the parliamentarians. What is this? What is happening? Are we reasonable in demanding an explanation, in demanding a suo motu explanation by the government, particularly the Home Minister? Home Ministers claim to be the very efficient and very bold and called as Chanakya, but why he is afraid of answering the questions of the parliamentarians, all the opposition parties inside the parliament, why he is not answering?
Why is he not
answering? So what
answering?
is the alternative left for the opposition parties instead of protesting it? When we go for a protest, that we demand an explanation from the Home Minister inside the parliament, how can the House suspends us and asking us to keep your voice mum and listen whatever we say? Can it be accepted? Let them answer in front of the country and countrymen that if this is acceptable in a democracy, I don't accept. This can be accepted by any person, citizen of this country, that political democracy can be run on an opposition's zero voice. It cannot be run.
So this is strong words from Mr. Hanumantaiah. Strong words from Mr. Hanumantaiah. Now let me bring in Dr. Ranganathan. Look, Dr. Ranganathan, to the lay viewer and the civilian, people like you, it seems like such a reasonable demand. After all, I've been on this channel and I've said in the past, you've been there, I think, where I've said that, look, Parliament, security of the nation does fall under the Home Minister, and you would expect perhaps the Home Minister to stand up in the House and say, if nothing else, look, we'll look into this. It's a very serious breach. We'll do something about it. Parliament is in session, but he spoke on an interview. He chose to speak there, leaving for the Speaker to sort of talk about what happened. So, if the Congress today and the opposition is asking for that, should they be suspended?
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to my fellow panelists. There is nothing wrong with the demand. It's absolutely reasonable. In fact, we on day one, when we were discussing this whole topic, Rahul, we wanted to make the same demand. And of course, this demand has to be made, but it is the manner in which these demands are being made. The fact of the matter is, Rahul, you are running, your program right now live on the in the studio. If somebody makes a demand that he or she should not be interjected, or this is what should be done, you will say fair enough. But if that panelist suddenly jumps onto the table, starts jumping around up and down like what many MPs have done in the past, or rushes towards you as if thinking you're a well, tears up some papers, there are rules for making the demand. What would you do? Or I'm sure there are security guards who would hold him up or her up and throw him out of the studio. So the fact of the matter is, let's accept it. We are cursed with electing either louts or Luddites. And I think the time has come to enact a law whereby every time a parliamentarian disrupts the House, his term should be truncated by 4 months. 3 disruptions and he will have 1 year less to loot his constituency. What better way to turn a delinquent into an eloquent? Budget, monsoon, winter, every parliamentary session is the same old story, Rahul, every year, every term. And no one is interested in finding a solution. And this cuts across party lines, across legislative assembly, state or central. Let me show you something here, so that people might think, look, this, I hope everyone, including my good friend Guru, can read this.
No,
this is what happened a few months ago.
It's difficult to pick out what...
Karnataka Assembly, the BJP MLAs tore the bills, threw them at the Deputy Speaker's face, rushed to the well, disrupted the House. The House was adjourned sine die. So it's not just that the Congress is doing it. Every one of them is doing it. And the fact of the matter is, back to this, Rajya Sabha, the rules are scrupulous and detailed.
Yeah.
They deal with the minutest of infraction and vandalism. There is CCTV footage available. There are dozens of witnesses at all times. There are marshals and guards. And so are we now, like what happened last time round just a year ago, going to refer to all such cases to the Supreme Court? There are 70,000 cases pending in the Supreme Court, 50 million cases pending overall. But to be honest, it is embarrassing that matters relating to decorum of an assembly or the parliament can no longer be settled inside the assembly or the parliament. Think about it, Rahul. This has almost become a tradition now, and all at our taxpayers' expense. And to be honest, just 30 seconds, these MPs, I'm sorry to say this, are least bothered about the severity of the punishment meted out. 1,000 rupee fine or a suspension, they are laughing at this. That's why I propose, every time a parliamentarian disrupts the House, his or her term should be truncated by 4 months. That will scare them and hopefully make them behave. That sad truth, Rahul, is that democracy, more often than we'd like to admit, is not so much the defeat of the elected as it is of the electorate.
Okay. Mr. Hanumanthaya, you've been raising your hand. It's not the fact that you should or should not be making demands, it's the manner in which you're doing it. The means don't justify the ends. We are sick of people jumping around, holding placards, uprooting things, dancing on tables. I mean, we haven't elected monkeys. We've elected people. No. And that's what it is. No. That's what the civilian is saying.
I have a point here.
Yes, sir.
No, I have a point here. Let me put it very clearly to my friend, the civilian representative on the channel. See, there is a limit for everything. We demand, in the first point, we stood up from our seats, we demand for an explanation from the government. The government, if it answers as a responsibility, if it answers, there is no point for any opposition party MP to go to the table or to the well and to dance there or do whatever they want. That I don't accept it, and I myself telling it is not the duty of an MP.
Thank you for saying that, sir. Thank you for saying
that. When the government goes beyond that, government never cares never cares for opposition's demand. What is the alternative left out for any opposition MP? Where he has to go? Can you ask him to go to the Delhi Jantar Mantar and protest there? Or will you ask him to protest inside the house? When he take out his placards and demand for an statement, is it wrong? When he comes into the well as a last resort, is it wrong? And is it the policy of this government, suspend all the opposition MPs and conduct the business, pass your bills?
Look,
is there any meaning in that?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
In that?
Correct
this
me
has
if
to
I'm
be
wrong.
answered.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hanumantaya. You're justifying, in the face of the government's decision not to heed to your demand, you're justifying people rushing into the well of the house and breaking very clearly stipulated rules. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, some people would find that a problem. And let me also tell you, in the interests of balance here, viewers, let me bring in the BJP spokesperson, Guru Prakash Paswan. Now, you see, I'll take you back a few years, Mr. Paswan, to when Mr. Jaitley was the leader of the opposition. And you see, what Dr. Ranganathan is talking about and what really irritates me is when a whole session is washed out or a whole day is washed out. I mean, do you know the cost of running parliament per minute, viewers? It's shocking. And add that up over many hours and a whole session, 25, 30 days. It goes into crores. It's our money. It's our money. But viewers, Arun Jaitley justified that. He said, because again, the government was not, of that day, which is the UPA government, was not heeding to what he wanted, etc., and his party wanted. They were stalling the house. There was disruption. It was a complete washout actually. And he gets up and says, parliamentary disruption is in favor of democracy and therefore it is not undemocratic. So, Mr. Paswan, if the Congress is reading the gospel back to you as enunciated by the late Arun Jaitley, then why are you suspending them? You should actually be putting them on a pedestal and saying, look, they're upholding democracy as, envisaged by Mr. Jaitley. Can you explain to me? I'm confused tonight. I'm really confused. Either Mr. Jaitley was wrong and he would be suspended.
No.
If he were a Congress MP today, or you would put him up as on a pedestal and say, this is Gandhigiri 2.0.
No, I think, Rahul, a very warm good evening to you and all my fellow panelists, and you have made a very interesting point. But we also have to understand and appreciate one simple point, that we cannot afford to compare apples and oranges. When Arun Jaitley ji said about the parliamentary disruption, it had a different dimension and a different context. Corruption was done in tunes of lakhs of crores of rupees. But today, over the last few days, what we have seen, Rahul, it's deeply unfortunate. There are 3 Ds: decency, dignity and decorum. These 3 Ds are foundational values of any institution, and the erosion of these values will lead to erosion of our parliamentary institution. Rahul, if you allow me, I would like to remind you what Dr. Ambedkar said. Dr. Ambedkar, in his speech on 25th November 1949, categorically says that if we wish to maintain democracy, what should we do? He makes a very prophetic statement, Rahul. He says, in my judgment, we have to hold constitutional methods. I would like to repeat, constitutional methods of achieving our social and economic objectives. And when you are not using constitutional methods, you are just resorting to grammar of anarchy. So in the light of Dr. Ambedkar's statement, what the opposition party MPs are now doing is nothing less than a grammar of anarchy. Everything was discussed, Rahul, in the all-party meeting. The usage of placards were prevented. The opposition leaders agreed that there will be no placards. But you have to understand my second point as well. Why did it happen today only? Whenever the important legislative business is scheduled to happen, whenever there is a bill, there is a law to empower the women, to empower the OBC, to empower the Dalit communities, the opposition will create a hurdle. This is a very conscious,
this is a rhetorical point you're making.
And
you need to substantiate
design.
This with hard facts. That's a rhetorical argument. But let me come back to this point that you're making, Mr. Paswan. Let me ask you a question, a counter question on the first point. Now, you said the context was different and the dimension was different. And we must compare apples and oranges. Right? Apples with apples, not apples and oranges. Now, I want to ask you a question. Yeah, well, just give me 30 seconds. I just want to ask you a question. Now, I agree, corruption erodes democracy. Corruption erodes democracy, Mr. Paswan. So, obviously, Mr. Jaitley, being fundamentally a Democrat, was upset that corruption was not being given its, there was no accountability on that. But a threat, a terror threat erodes sovereignty. And sovereignty is governed today by our parliament. Now, there is no democracy without a state. If the state seems to exist in its most manifest, symbolic representation, which is the House of Parliament, what are we defending? Forget about democracy. There is no state, there is no democracy, there is nothing. So, this is a very important issue. Some two guys get into Parliament. They could have had a bomb with them, God alone knows. Anything could have happened. They could have held, 180, 200 MPs hostage and demanded anything. We've seen what has happened in Israel. So I'm asking you, sir, this is a very consequential development. Now, all the opposition is saying is, we just want to hear the Home Minister give a statement. He's in charge of national security. What's wrong with that? He has spoken, hasn't he, Mr. Shah?
No, Rahul, I think this is an education for our friend in the Congress party.
Okay.
This is an education for Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Mr. Rahul Gandhi never ever related this with the argument of sovereignty. He completely diverted the issue. And Rahul, I must also mention, as far as the seriousness or the consequential nature of this issue is concerned, both the Honorable Prime Minister has not only acknowledged but has expressed deep concerns. Even the Honorable Union Minister of Home Affairs, there has been
Dr. Ranganathan is asking you
by
something.
the Speaker of Lok Sabha.
But
the point is, if I can complete, Rahul, if you could please.
Aren't the leaders supposed to say their statements, make their statements in the Parliament? That is what BJP has been saying ever. If the Parliament is in session, why are they making that statement inside the Parliament? So please tell me if the Prime Minister or the Home Minister have made those statements inside the Parliament.
Anandji, when the time comes, whenever it is appropriate, the statements will be made. But actions speak louder than words, sir. And I think you would agree with me when I say that actions speak louder than words. A committee has been constituted, Anandji. And what Mr. Rahul Gandhi said, well, diverting the entire issue. But the point is not that. We have to, as
this
world's
committee,
largest
what committee are you
Anandji,
talking about,
as
sir?
World's,
Can you enunciate on the committee?
If you allow... No,
who is heading this committee?
Allow me to complete, Rahul.
No, I just want to. I want you to
Mr.
clarify.
Om Prakash Birla has given.
Yes.
Rahul ji, Mr. Om Prakash Birla, the Honorable Speaker of the Parliament, has given strict direction.
To whom?
We have to inquire the breach, when it happened, how it happened.
To whom?
Every inquiry will be done.
By
and
whom?
we cannot be.
Who's leading the inquiry?
As far as the question, sir, Rahul ji. No, Rahul ji, the Speaker of Lok Sabha is leading the inquiry. Who else will lead the inquiry?
Who is investigating this issue? I'll tell you, viewers, I know the answer. Now, I'll tell you. Yes. So who is, one second. You see, viewers, the
Rahul,
CRPF
let me complete.
boss.
Rahul, you have not allowed me to complete, sir.
Sir, you cannot suspend me. Give me 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. I'm just making a clarification.
I'm the one who's sitting here, sir.
Okay, so just 1 second. 1 second, Mr. Paswan. Look, the point is that on this committee also, many people are questioning whether it can go freely and fairly into the issues. Because you have the person heading this committee, the operational part of it, the investigations. It's being done by a person who is investigating his own agency, the CRPF. Now, how does that work? So there is a conflict of interest, many people are saying. Can you answer that question? And also, why shouldn't we expect a response, as Dr. Ranganathan, the civilian, is asking here, from our Prime Minister or Home Minister being the actual line manager really of the security forces today? Why shouldn't we hear him speak in the House? That's his question to you.
Rahulji, you are the speaker of this discussion and I would abide by every single guideline given by you. I just request you humbly, if you allow me to complete one sentence. The question of security breach has been taken cognizance of, at the very highest level.
Right.
There cannot be any denial. Statements with respect to security breach by the Honorable Prime Minister or by the Honorable Home Minister will be made at the appropriate time on the floor of the House. But you tell me something, sir. Leader of the House in Lok Sabha, Leader of the House in Rajya Sabha, Mr. Piyush Goyal, hasn't he spoken about it? He has made statement with respect to security breach. But the question is, this is your adamancy, sir. This is you just being adamant. This is the opposition people just being adamant. The question is not that. There is an all-party meeting that happened. In that all-party meeting, it was agreed upon that the legislative business would happen. The bills for empowering the OBCs, the women, the Dalit communities would happen. But the opposition party consciously, strategically, and in a designed manner did not want these laws to be passed. And that is the reason someone is jumping on the well, someone is tearing
So
out
you
the
didn't want the
institution.
three,
You have to remember,
you
Rahul,
didn't want the
that
three
Parliament.
important bills today to go through. That's what he's saying. And there was an agreement. Now, Mr. Kamru Chaudhary, I'll come back to you, sir. 1 second. Kamru Chaudhary, you need to come in here because this is important. You've been, of course, in your own time, an active politician. So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Kamru Chaudhary, look, we've had incidents in the past of people disrupting, jumping into assemblies as well as parliament. No one has ever asked, this is what the BJP has put out many times, no one has ever asked that point in time the Prime Minister of the day to come out or the Home Minister. The Speaker's dealt with it because he's the custodian of the House. And the Speaker has not only invited you, he's given a suo motu statement. Not once but 2 or 3 times. So Kamru Chaudhary, what's the big deal? Why are you disrupting?
Now, Rahul, the basic question is here. I am not going to discuss out here today on the basis of this particular issue that 92 MPs were suspended. But a larger whole picture that you need to understand and your viewers need to understand.
No, you answer my question. Well, larger picture, we never answer the question.
Rahul, 10 seconds into the debate and you are interrupting me. Please have that much courtesy after 25 minutes. You know, this Bharatiya Janata Party remains confrontational. They are undemocratic and prone to bulldozing its way through just because of one simple reason. They have got an absolute brute majority in both the houses of the parliament. You know, the problem is not with the decisions of the government or decision of the opposition. It's in the first or the last government to take such controversial decisions. It is the manner in which the decisions are taken, excluding all the other stakeholders. If democracy, my point is here, little limited point. If the democracy gives you a mandate to rule, it also gives you the responsibility to govern democratically. Something the Modi government seems to have forgotten. May I cite you an example of the farm laws? The 3 farm laws were brought in by bulldozing the parliament. And when the opposition managed to ask the government to withdraw the bills, without even a single discussion, the entire 3 farm laws were withdrawn from the parliament. When Manipur was burning,
Mr. Kamru
because
Chaudhary,
of
please,
the video,
please just 1 second. I want you to address this question, please. This is where this whataboutery begins. Now, what did he say? Brute majority. I have pointed out, viewers, in 1989, brute majority. That was the last time the Congress actually had a majority government. It was under Rajiv Gandhi. Excuse me, let me finish, sir. Now, you don't answer my question, then you'll yell at me for not giving you the time. Now, everyone at least addresses the question I ask. You're giving me a history lesson. I think the viewers are sick of the history lesson, sir. I'm asking you a simple question. If this is brute majority, dictatorship, then what was Rajiv Gandhi doing when under his watch, the Speaker suspended 67 MPs?
For how many days?
Was he a dictator?
For 7 days. For 7 days.
It doesn't matter. The days don't matter. The action matters. Now we are quibbling over days. You see, sir, a suspension can be overturned in 1 day. Tomorrow the man will overturn it. There are 4 days to go. So effectively this suspension is 4 days.
No, Rahul, if you don't understand the difference between 1989 and 2023.
Oh, right. No. Sir, don't be so. Don't be clever by half. Because listen, I can understand. A reasonable point was made by Mr. Hanumantaya. We can quibble over, the exact means that was applied. But I can't have somebody sitting here and telling me that when Rajiv Gandhi did what he did. And viewers, we are talking about muzzling. He almost got successfully to muzzle the press. There was an important bill that he was going to pass, Rajiv Gandhi, viewers. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan. I'll hand it back to the
that
civilian.
was not about the bill. It was
Yeah,
the placing of the
Kamleji, I
report
didn't
on
interrupt
Indira
you.
Gandhi's assassination. When the 63 MPs were suspended in
67.
1989. 67 MPs were suspended in 1989. It was because of a dispute of the report being
So
tabled on the
what?
parliament on Indira Gandhi's
So what?
assassination.
So what?
No, it was
It
not
was
because
still
of
an
the
act.
bill.
No, hang on.
No.
Hang on. Who set up that committee to investigate?
No,
what are you saying?
You just misquoted a bill.
I
was
didn't misquote. I
placed.
began, sir. I began by giving the exact, the reason also why it
Because
happened.
we all come from that
Khattar-
Rajiv Gandhi area.
No, please, sir.
Era,
The Thakkar Commission
and now we
report.
are seeing
I
the
even
Modi.
mentioned it. So
You know,
please,
Rahul,
don't
something
spin
is
me
a
around.
joke now.
I'm
that
done.
North Korea is a democracy. Iran is a democracy. India is also
come
following
on.
the
Kamleji,
footsteps
I
of
did not
North
interrupt
Korea.
you.
This is where you
No,
are
no,
really
muzzle
doing
the
a
democracy,
disservice
do
to
whatever
the
you
Congress
want. It hardly
case.
matters. Even
People
the
like
Prime
you
Minister
cannot
goes
end
about
up doing this,
mentioning
sir, because
people
people are
that
very
हमको
clever.
ये
Yes,
धर्म
Dr.
और
Ranganathan
हमारा
wants to come in.
संस्कृति.
And I want to move on
Yeah.
because there's a very, very important debate also that we need to look at, a very big issue. Yes, Doctor.
Yes, very briefly, you just saw how Kamleji rationalized the suspension by the Congress, just like Guru, my good friend, had rationalized the suspension by the BJP. And what Mr. Jaitley said, he said, look at the context. No, disruption of the house is disruption of the house, period. But I want to go back to what Hanumantaiah ji said. I think he made a very rational point. He said, look, we begin by putting something, our demand on the table legitimately and, in a very decent language and demeanor. When it is not accepted, then we resort to all these means of breaking the law. So Hanumantaiah ji is halfway there. I propose to him that, sir, in case your reasonable demands are not met when they are professed very rationally, you have to seek the courts. You have to get the Supreme Court to say that the answer is not jumping up on the table suddenly and tearing up bills, but for the government to listen.
Exactly. And this is where I want to bring back Dr. Manmohan Singh. What did he say? The opposition chose not to take advantage of the subtle institutional practices. There are many institutional practices. You can move the courts, you can, go out there and move a resolution. There are many ways of doing things, viewers. Yes, very quickly. Yes, sir. We are moving out.